You are apparently evil if you watch Mushoku Tensei, because apparently you want to be just like Rudy, aka impotent, and it is just wrong and evil to watch the anime itself. And honestly, every single time I read or see some hot takes like this, I feel like people have completely forgotten that A, this story is entirely fictional, and that people don't automatically agree with what people in fictional universes do just because they watch a show or an anime, and B, Rudy is not a role model or a righteous knight in shining armor, nor was he ever presented as such. But before we take a more detailed and nuanced look at this controversy and how it is weirdly similar to the controversy about Overlord's third season, let me quickly thank my Patreons for supporting this channel, as well as say thanks to all users of the YouTube thanks function who made one-time donations. And with that said, let's get to the topic at hand. Let's start with the basics. This is Jaime Lannister. He is one of the many point of view characters of Game of Thrones. He is not the good guy. This is Ain Sulgon, the undead overlord of Nazarick. He is not the good guy, just the point of view character. This is a cute cat, and it's just adorable. And this is a devil. And a part-timer. Hence why the anime he is in is called Devil is a Part-Timer. But just because these characters exist in their respective fantasy universes and we can see their stories from their point of views, doesn't mean that people that are watching Game of Thrones, Overlord or Devil is a Part-Timer want to throw kids out of windows or love their sister like Jaime Lannister does. Or want to live a fairly lonely life, riddled with imposter syndrome, without any close confidence and friends, like Ain Sulgon does. Or are now willing to work at McDonald's, of all places. And to me it personally feels just weird to see how people presume that other people want to literally do all of the things that are shown in some TV show or an anime or in video games just because they see them. As if nobody can differentiate between fiction and reality. And to me personally, this feels like the video game debate of the early 2000s, when people alleged that video games will turn people into violent murderers, which apparently wasn't the case. And funnily enough, I don't hear people making nearly as much of a fuss about video games now, when microtransaction and badly disguised gambling became the industry standards for most video games. Also, there's just a lot, and at least to me very familiar nitpicking going on with Mushoku Tensei and its protagonist, that reminds me of Overlord and its supposed controversy back in 2018. There, at least a part of the anime community did not find it at all to be controversial when Ain Sulgon was sending out an army of the undead in order to wipe out the entire lizardman civilization around the lakes of the Elysian Mountains. This action alone would have earned him a place in The Hague as a war criminal, and nobody was outraged. People just accepted this. Nobody complained. But despite this, people were supposedly all shocked and surprised when Ain Sulgon, a full season later, ordered Arche to be killed. And this is very hypocritical. The life of 10,000 lizardmen were not valued nearly as high as the life of one single human. Why? Well, they are not cute girls. Nobody cared when Ain Sulgon offed some lizardmen, but everybody was shocked and supposedly surprised because they could never see coming what was coming to Arche, her death, because Ain Sulgon was apparently supposed to be the good guy. No, he wasn't. And this was made clear pretty early. And rudeus is the point of view character of Mushoku Tensei, and he's not the good guy either. He mooched off his parents for a decade and masturbated during their funeral instead of actually attending it. So at the very start, when we are introduced to his character, back in Japan, it was crystal clear that he was not the good guy, nor did the anime portray or glorify his behavior as something that a good guy or the audience should strive to emulate. The anime simply just had shown and illustrated how the character lived. And don't get me wrong, it was not his responsibility that he was mentally scarred, and I don't blame him for being, let's call it, assaulted, but it was still his responsibility to deal with it. Something he had a decade to do, but he didn't. He chose not to do it. Despite his parents and his entire environment being very supportive of him for many, many years. I mean, compare this to Orsted, who is cursed to be hated by every single being in the six-sided world, and who carries on despite all of this. And when Rudy traveled with Rudy to Perdia, Rudy, once deliberately knowing full well how dangerous the monster head was, withheld crucial aid to a group of young and inexperienced adventurers in their fight until one of them died, which again was Rudy's fault. Rudy essentially gambled with the life of a sentient innocent being and lost the gamble and therefore his life. And he did it in order to get something out of it, namely a slightly greater feeling of relief if the plan had worked out. This would land him in jail in most countries, and again, it was a deliberate action he undertook in order to gain something out of it. And he was not only a passive observer either, but told Rujetsu Perdia explicitly to stand down. But despite all of his actions, that resulted in the death of a sentient human-like being, they were apparently not controversial at all. And basically nobody cared about Rudy's innocent victim, because it was not a cute girl. Without a cute anime girl, there is seemingly never any controversy. Another point I want to make is that Rudy is also ogling and staring at any woman like a piece of meat, something that he is also called out for in the novels. For example, by Cliff Grimoire. In Cliff's own POV chapter, he clearly notices how Rudy would act meek and submissive in order to get liked and accepted. Yet he also ogles and stares at his fellow students in spite of how off-putting it is. And his uncontrollable lust and how he did not deal with his problems back at home are also the reason why he is now suffering from ED. Erectile dysfunction. And Rudy also risked a major continent-spanning war in the last episode over a figurine of Roxy by fighting Linnea and Persina, and then leaving them for a day without medical care or access to food and water, something that is explicitly mentioned in the novels. If he had failed to control his strength properly, they might have died. And then a major continent-spanning war would have broken out. These are not the actions of a good guy. And yes, participating in the sale of human-like beings is bad. He could just have freed the dwarf girl and then hired her back as an official assistant or servant. And he also could just have gone to the many artisans in and around the academy, which is literally the center of magical learning in this world. And many people would be honored to have their young kid study under Rudeus, the special student, especially after the run-in with one of the 7 great powers. To give you a little hint what the next episode of Mushoku Tensei will deal with. So, these are not the actions of a good guy, just the actions of Rudy, the protagonist of Mushoku Tensei, nor are they ever portrayed as the actions of a good guy. And just showing the actions of a point-of-view character does not mean that Mushoku Tensei, or Game of Thrones, or Downfall, or any other media that is showing or illustrating evil acts, agrees with these evil acts, and is somehow evil itself. The anime Mushoku Tensei also clearly did not portray the sale of sentient beings as a good thing. You can clearly see how malnourished and mentally damaged the dwarf girl is, how tight the cages are, and in the novels it was also said that this was one of the best markets, that there were others, even more vile, that would offer sick and dying sentient beings for sale at a lower price. The novels also described the stink in the backrooms and made it pretty clear, or rather even more clear, that this was not a good thing. And yes, you can of course still feel sorry for Rudy being mentally hit hard to the point he was about to end his life, or being broken to the point that his spear would not stand, without agreeing that everything he does is good. Just like you can feel sorry for and have sympathy with Jaime Lannister, without applauding all of his other behavior. And again, just like Jaime Lannister, Rudeus Greyrat is a grey character, a character both capable of good and evil acts to varying degrees. And fun fact, both are also nailing a part of their family like IKEA furniture without an instruction manual. And again, the entire controversy around Rudeus being not a 100% good guy, which is apparently a recent requirement that all main characters, all protagonists need to now adhere to, feels highly contrived. And I think it's just drama for drama's sake. But that's just my opinion. What is yours? Let me know down in the comment section. And please be civil with another. And with that said, I say thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to Other Daddy Other, Bad Guy Ye, Bad Burrito 316, Beezer, Ben C, Brandon D, Chrissy, Crowley 0221, Sia, Crystal Prime, Dead Slime, Death is Mercy, Deathless Dragonlord, Demon Xenomorph 1987, Devin Downen, Ding Dong, Dragonlord, Plexi Du Saxophone, Duckwagon, Dunkle Krieger, Dystopia, Dystopia II, Enigmatic Unicorn, Thiralshivan, Guy with That Head, Hector Moreno, Hoss, Huster, Jacob G, Jana B, Jason, J. Morris, Chromius, Kyle R, Lee K. Long, Legendarius, Lelouch wie Britannia with a mustache, Lexus Fox, Lord Nishikian Rai, Lord Touch Me, Love Razor, Merovec, Mr. Shoes, Mr. Tweaker, Michael R, Michael Y, Nope, Oh Hell No, Normal Toad, Oh Kill, Overlord General Gasper, Patty Pantum, Personage, Primus 11, Rhinomere, Q&A Caracos P, Shangox's Daddy, Shadow Lightning Wolf, Shrine Keeper, Super Tier Magic Batista Bomb, Supreme Cheese, Staris, Ted, Texas Deer, The Orc Warboss, Rock Ed Smasher, T.E. Wang, Vash Hawkeye, Vegito27, Venture Fanatic, Wilhelm, Xenokai, and Zonagon. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, and I hope to see you all again soon under my next video.